Hey folks, this is Aces from Aces Guides. We're doing the Baldur's Gate 3 class review and tier list. Right now we are on the Rogue class, so let's just get to it. If we sneak on over to character creation and select the Rogue class, we can see all the class features you get at level 1. And let's start, as we always do, with its base stats and proficiencies. Rogues get the 1/8 hit point progression. I've said this a few times now. 1/8 is average. It's not good, but it's also not bad. For saving throws, it gets dexterity and intelligence. This is an underwhelming saving throw combo, in my opinion. As we said last time with the Ranger, dexterity is the worst of the major 3 saving throws. Intelligence is middling of the minor 3. It's better than charisma, I think, but not by a lot. There's just not a lot of things that target the intelligence saving throw. In weapon and armor proficiencies, they get light armor, which is all you'll need for a dexterity build. And if you're doing a strength build, you're likely to pick a racial option that will give you medium armor. We'll talk about that a bit later. For weapons, they get simple weapons, and then this package of select martial weapons that are very roguey. You know, it just wouldn't be the class without them. Hand crossbow, longsword, rapier, short sword. These are good weapons to have in your list. Short sword is a better dagger. It's tied with scimitar as the best dual-wielding weapon. And I want my rogues to dual-wield very often, so short swords are your go-to for that. Rapier is the highest base damage finesse weapon. And finesse weapons are crucial for rogues, as we'll talk about in a bit. Hand crossbows are your only one-handed ranged weapon, so you can get a ranged attack in your bonus action, another great feature for rogues. That's the base stats and proficiencies. Now let's look at the base class features. And the most important feature for a rogue, the class-defining feature, you actually get at level 1. It's sneak attack.
Sometimes you sneak attacking so good, you not even know you sneak attacking.
Sneak attack is a damage boost, and this already just solidifies the rogue's role as a striker. So yes, this is another martial striker. We've done the barbarian, the fighter, the ranger, now the rogue. This is the last of them that we have in early access so far. So all my reviews after this one, we won't be talking about martial strikers anymore. Yeah, so sneak attack adds damage. It adds 1d6 damage at level 1, but you'll be adding more damage as you progress. We'll talk about that. It adds this damage when you make an attack under certain conditions. First, you have to be using a finesse weapon to get your sneak attack damage. It has to be a finesse weapon. So if you attack with a finesse weapon and then meet one of these other 2 conditions, you'll proc sneak attack. The other 2 conditions are either you have advantage on your attack against the target, or you don't have disadvantage and an ally is within 1.5 meters of the target. So a disadvantage is a hard out. You can never get sneak attack when attacking with disadvantage. Advantage will proc it, or attacking an enemy who's distracted by an ally will also proc it. And this can be either a ranged attack or a melee attack. When you do this, you get 1d6 extra damage on top of everything else. And this is a damage dice, so it is multiplied on crits, which is great. I mentioned before that it scales. You're going to add an extra 1d6 to your sneak attack damage pool for every odd level. So it's 1d6 level 1, it's 2d6 at level 3, and that's as far as we get in early access. But if we went to level 5, you'd be seeing 3d6 sneak attack damage, and so on, all the way up to, I think, 10d6 at level 19 is the highest you can get in tabletop. And 10d6 damage is a lot of damage on an attack. But actually, I want to break the mold here. Usually I save all of my evaluation to the end. Once I've described the base class, then I give it a ranking and I evaluate it. But I want to evaluate sneak attack right now because it's so important to the class and it's misunderstood. Here's the thing. Sneak attack isn't good. It's actually pretty bad. And it's sad, it really is, because in older editions of the game, sneak attack was amazing. But here's the problem with sneak attack in Baldur's Gate 3. It is hard locked at 1 per round. You can only get 1 sneak attack per round, because, I forgot to mention this, you have to be making an attack with your attack action. That's the way Lariat has implemented it. You have to use your action to proc this. And it's really a problem. Now, in tabletop D&D, sneak attack is also locked at 1 sneak attack proc per round, except there are kind of loopholes in the system that allow you to jailbreak it and consistently get up to 2 sneak attacks in a round. And when that happens, sneak attack damage starts to get really good. But think about it right now in Baldur's Gate 3 when you're getting 1 in a round. That's 2d6 damage. Compared to the Ranger. The Ranger can get 2d6 bonus damage on their DPR just with Hunter's Mark and dual wielding. Easy, right? But unlike sneak attack, if you haste your Ranger, now that's 3d6. If they get an attack of opportunity against their Hunter's Mark target, now it's 4d6. If they add an extra attack at level 5, it's 5d6. You get the idea. Right now, so, just 2d6 damage, it's really not that much. And then it's so conditional. Sneak attack is so conditional. First, the restriction to finesse weapons. I mean, you can't use this with most of the really good weapons in the game. You can't use it with Shattered Flail. You can't do it with Everburn. You can't sneak attack with Light of Creation. You can't sneak attack with the Sword of Justice. There just aren't really good magical finesse weapons. And so already that's a big punishment. But then there's its tactical positional requirements. Advantage can be pretty hard to get. And then having an ally within 1.5 meters isn't difficult, but it can be difficult to get on the right target. And one of the advantages that Rogue has over some of its other Martial Striker competitors is its target selection. It's going to have a lot of mobility. And for a Striker, you trade mobility for good target selection. It allows you to get to their backline, onto their, caster or cleric. A Rogue can get into the backline easier than your allies. But then once they're back there, they're not proccing that sneak attack because they have no ally there to help them proc it. It can be kind of difficult to proc this thing, and then you're not even getting that much out of it, and it's just a really underwhelming feature the way that Larian has implemented it. In fact, I'm going to pull up a chart here to show you why this is a problem, and it will remain a problem as long as Larian hard locks you to 1 sneak attack in a round. Remember that feats like Great Weapon Master, for example, were in tabletop originally variant rules. They were optional features. And so a lot of class features are not balanced around feats being in the game, and sneak attack is one of these. Sneak attack is perfectly balanced when you consider that it's meant to compete with a fighter who uses the dueling fighting style with a single melee weapon and like a shield in their offhand. You can see here I've graphed the damage at all the major points that a fighter gets an extra attack, and a rogue is almost exactly on par with them at all those points. They're made to be similar, different in style, but similar damage load, let's say. Similar damage potential. But feats already benefit the fighter more than rogues, right? You can take Great Weapon Master on fighters, and I went ahead and graphed this chart. This is even factoring in fighting styles for Great Weapon Master. You're already way better than a rogue who's sneak attacking once in a round. And then, there are other feats that fighters can get. Not in the game yet, but think of what will happen when we get Polearm Master or Sentinel. There aren't really comparable feats for the rogue. What do they have? Well, Sharpshooter, Crossbow Expert, if you want to be a ranged rogue. Melee rogues, they get Defensive Duelist, but that's not adding anything to your DPR. It's just improving your durability. Now, melee rogues are actually the way that you can jailbreak sneak attack that I was talking about, because in tabletop, you can proc sneak attacks on offhand attacks, but you're still limited to 1 per turn. But it's pretty clear in the rules, and Sage Advice has confirmed this, that if you make an attack that meets the sneak attack conditions on somebody else's turn, that's a different turn. That's a different turn than yours. So you could potentially get more sneak attacks if, for example, you proc an opportunity attack. Because of this, and because readied actions are a thing in tabletop, you can, on your turn, attack with your bonus action, proccing sneak attack once. Then you can ready an action on your main hand, and that will proc on a different turn, proccing sneak attack again. And once it's getting 2 sneak attacks in a round, it can really compete for damage. So Rogue in tabletop is a good striker class, but Larian, I don't think they really understand the balance of this feature, and right now it's just not good. It's just not competing with any of the other martial strikers. It doesn't compete with the ranger, it doesn't compete with the fighter, it definitely doesn't compete with the barbarian. So, okay, that's my rant. I've spent a lot of time talking about this. Let's move on to the other features that the base class gets. At level 2, rogues get their second and final base class feature, which is called Cunning Action. Cunning Action, the way Larian has implemented it, allows you to either dash as a bonus action or disengage as a bonus action. Now in tabletop, you can also hide as a bonus action. But right now in BG3, any class can hide as a bonus action, which is something I frankly don't like. I think it takes a lot from the rogue's niche. Right now, I've mentioned it several times, every class can, when they're a ranged attacker, hide on their bonus action and then attack with advantage. And that is typically something that is reserved for rogues. There are some nice things that you can do dash or disengage as a bonus action, particularly dash. If you go back to my very first video, Barbarian video, I talk about the Eagleheart Barbarian who can dash on a bonus action. And I discuss how it synergizes with certain items. There's really just a pair of boots, which when you dash as a bonus action gives you lightning charges, which when you dash it gives you lightning charges, but having it as a bonus action allows you to dash with a less valuable action slot and dash every round and still be able to attack. And with this item, it'll give you a lot of damage on your attacks just from dashing as a bonus action. And you also get a lot of movement speed from it. So this in particular is quite good. Disengage is good. It allows you to kite, right? If a enemy dashes towards you, he's used his action, but he's closed the distance now, and if you run away from him, you will proc an attack of opportunity. Well, the rogue can disengage, move his full action away, and then attack. Or also dash away, and the guy has to dash to meet you, and you're in a stalemate. And that is the base rogue class. Next, we will talk about its subclasses, Arcane Trickster and Thief. Two very, very interesting subclasses. But, of course, before that, what ranking do we give the rogue? Well, the rogue is, of course, a striker class. It's a martial striker class, competing with the barbarian, fighter, and ranger. And of these four, the rogue base class is the worst, in my opinion. It's gotten a little bit of a boost with the lightning charges item, Cunning Action Dash, but not enough to move it out of the C tier, which I placed it in previous patches. Really, it's sneak attack that's holding it back, and we talked about that earlier. I won't go over it again, but I would like it if Larian offered us ways to, with clever positioning and tactics, proc more than one sneak attack in a round. But since right now we are gated to a single sneak attack in a round, the rogue base class just isn't giving very much damage compared to other striker classes, so it's a C tier for the rogue. Like most classes, rogues pick their subclasses at level 3, and in early access we have two options to choose from, Arcane Trickster and Thief. We're going to start with Arcane Trickster, and here I'm in Asterian's level up because I like making Asterian and Arcane Trickster. So Arcane Trickster is kind of like the rogue equivalent of the Eldritch Knight, which we talked about with the fighter. They are a rogue with a kind of 1/4 wizard spell progression, which is a pretty stunted spell progression, but I think it works a little bit better with the rogue than it does with the fighter, especially right now in BG3 early access. Okay, so when you pick this class, you get 2 features. One of them is spellcasting, and the other is this, Mage Hand Legerdemon. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. What this feature does is it gives you the cantrip, Mage Hand, but it alters it. It says the Spectral Hand is invisible, and it carries out additional tasks. But as far as I know, it's not carrying out any additional tasks right now. Like, the additional tasks it has in tabletop have to do with making sleight of hand checks with it, and I don't think it does that. But it is invisible, and that is the key part of this feature. Why? Well, I mean, an invisible mage hand can't be seen. And you want that because you can use Mage Hand as an ally to trigger sneak attack. And if it can't be seen, no one's going to target it, and so they won't kill it. It's really quite simple. You can just summon the Mage Hand next to an enemy, and then you're going to be proccing sneak attack on attacks against that enemy now. And they'll never kill it, so it's always going to be there. Brilliant. Really, I honestly think like it's a big deal. It fixes kind of the target selection problems that the rogue had, and then on top of that, it gets spells. And like I said, it's a stunted spell progression. I think you'll get 3 level 1 spells by the end of early access, and it's going to take us much longer to get to level 2 spells. But right now, there are good level 1 spells that we can use. You get cantrips. Cantrips are... I won't say that much about them. I recommend, for sure, Chill Touch. I think Ray of Frost is a good cantrip. Light is a good cantrip. Minor Illusion is a good cantrip, but it's not here because Asterion gets Minor Illusion anyways as his High Elf free cantrip. So those are good picks. We'll talk about them more when we actually cover the Mage spell list with the Sorcerer and the Wizard. For level 1 spells, now you can, like the Eldritch Knight, could only pick Abjuration and Evocation. Arcane Tricksters can only pick Enchantment and Illusion spells. And it's better. These are better, at least right now, because Sleep is an enchantment spell, and that's really all we want, except for, maybe Tasha's Hideous Laughter, another enchantment spell. Both of these are S tier spells. Great for control and for guaranteeing crits, and rogues really like those guaranteed crits because you're multiplying all that sneak attack damage. Is one of the ways that they can keep up as a striker. And with the Arcane Trickster, you're just getting more casts of these spells in your party. It's really easy to underestimate that, but that's really good. And then you do get to pick one spell, which doesn't have to be of the illusion or enchantment spell schools. And this is a tougher choice. Really you can go with whatever you want. A lot of people like Find Familiar. Find Familiar doesn't function the same way it does in Tabletop. In Tabletop, you would pick is it the Raven or the Hawk or the Eagle? Or Owl. I think it's Owl that you pick. You pick the Owl Familiar, and that doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity, and then you can use it to spam the Help action, which will give you advantage on your attacks, which will proc sneak attack. It's kind of like the Spectral Hand trick. But that Help always works in Tabletop. But there isn't a way to give advantage with Help in BG3. Instead, the Raven Companion has to make an attack, and if it hits, it blinds the target, which will give you advantage against them. So it functions similarly, but you have to actually hit an attack roll. So it isn't a guarantee. But still, you can use Find Familiar in a similar way that you use Spectral Hand. It's just another ally to help you proc those attacks of opportunity. But I really think the go-to here should be Fog Cloud, because Fog Cloud will practically guarantee your stealth. That stealth roll, it makes it work. So a well-placed Fog Cloud, you can dip in and out of it, stealthing, which will also give you more attacks of opportunity. One problem with Fog Cloud, it's almost kind of cheesy right now, because everyone can hide on a bonus action, everyone in your party can dip in and out of it, hiding on attacking, walking back in, hiding on a bonus action, and they can never get targeted, and you can cheese a lot of fights this way, but I try not to use it for that. So yeah, that is the Arcane Trickster. I give the Arcane Trickster a B tier ranking. And that might surprise people. A lot of people see it as a dud compared to the Thief, but I think it's actually quite good. It offers a good selection of spells. It enables the base class with Mage Hand or Find Familiar. It's a great subclass. I really do like taking it. I take it often. I take it often when I run Asterion in my party. One of its problems, though, that really holds it back is the same problem that the Eldritch Knight had. It has a stunted spell progression, and it makes the rogue class dependent on more attributes, or as we like to say, it makes them MAD, multiple attribute dependent. So now they don't just need Dex and Constitution, maybe Strength you add in there, but they need Intelligence as well, and you can get around this with certain items in the game, but that's only going to last you so long, so do bear that in mind. But yeah, I am very comfortable giving it a B tier ranking. Don't be scared away by what people say about it. It's really fun and it's really good, so enjoy playing it. And that brings us to the second subclass, which is the Thief. A throwback to an older version of the Rogue. You know, rogues didn't start being called rogues until 3rd edition. And before that, in 2nd edition, the edition I started playing in, they were called thieves. Yeah, but now Thief is a subclass. And frankly, in tabletop 5th edition, the Thief is almost never played as far as I can tell. I've never played one. I've never played with any in my party, and I've never DM'd for a party that had a Thief in it. And the reason is that they're just not that good or interesting. So Larian heard that and made some changes to the subclass, and these changes completely crack it open. I mean, it is an S tier subclass, easily, hands down. I'm very comfortable saying it. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with me. The Thief is just so good now. And so let's talk about why. It gets 2 features. The first one is called Fast Hands, and this is the one that breaks the subclass. Fast Hand gives you an additional bonus action. So yes, what you're imagining is exactly what it is. Most people get 1 bonus action, Thieves get 2. And this will absolutely stack with all of the other ways that you can get bonus actions. So the Helm of Grit, the Circlet of Fire, if you can proc those, you're now getting 3 bonus actions on your round. Now, I've said it a million times, and I will say it a million times more. 5th edition is a game about action economy. It's just fundamental, it's baked into the math. In fact, I have written an article for my Patreons about this exactly. You know, getting into the math and showing why it is that it's better to utilize all your actions. Typically, it's better to utilize all your actions or to get more actions than it is to make the one action you do have more powerful. You want to go, you know, broader with your actions, not higher with a single action. That's the gist. And I am thinking I will post this article to my website for everyone, not just my patrons. In fact, I've decided right now, by the time I release this video, that article should be on my website. So if you're interested, check it out. It's kind of a dry mathematical article, but if you're curious of why it is that more actions is better than better actions, it will kind of give you a picture of why that is. But if you're not interested in the math, just take my word for it. More actions is better. And this is straight up just another action in your action economy. Most classes, when we're talking about action economy, they're trying to utilize underused action slots like reaction, bonus action, concentration, etc. Thieves just get another action in their action economy. It's so good. So what are the things you can do with this? Well, the obvious one is to dual wield and use it to make attacks. And this is good, but it's actually less good than people think immediately. Because the problem is, even though you are getting a use out of this extra bonus action, it really is not good to attack with offhand weapons when you don't have the 2-weapon fighting style. I mean, the damage is so minuscule. So, I mean, it is adding damage. I don't want to go back on what I'm saying, but it's not a lot of extra damage. But if you can find ways to add damage to your offhand attacks, suddenly fast hands gets really good. And there's one obvious way to add damage to it, and that is with Hex. So at level 4, if you take the Warlock Initiate feat and you take Hex as your spell, you can Hex targets and then fast hands them. With fast hands you're getting 3 attacks, so you can potentially proc Hex up to 3 times, adding 3 die 6 damage to your DPR. Amazing. And once you take fast hands with Thieves, they really start to compete with other striker classes for damage. I have graphed their damage on my class tier list if you want to check it out, but basically they're in 3rd place. The Berserker Barbarian is the best. The Battlemaster is 2nd when you factor in Riposte, and then comes what I call the Hex Thief. And being 3rd place is pretty good. That's a good striker build. But there are also a ton of other things you can do with fast hands. You can dash twice. You can jump twice. You can shove twice. You can disengage, then dash, and still have your attack open. I mean, the possibilities are endless. So just play it and play around with this thing. It's just so fun to get that extra bonus action. I mean, this actually is the class and the build which hooked me on Baldur's Gate 3. Because when I started playing, I made a fighter, I played till around level 3, and then I kind of bounced off of it. Came back a month later, made a rogue, a thief rogue, and I made a Githyanki thief rogue, like this guy. And I want to just take a second to explain to you why Githyanki synergizes with this subclass so well. And why, perhaps counterintuitively, you want to build strength on your thief rather than dexterity. And that's because a lot of the things you can do with your bonus action scale off of strength. Things like jumping and shoving in particular. Let's start with jumping, because this is the hilarious thing that got me hooked in the game. You can jump farther if you have a higher strength. And thieves can jump twice. So whatever bonus they're getting to their jump distance from strength, they're doubling every turn, or potentially doubling every turn. And then you can triple both of those with the jump spell, which the Githyankis get innately. And all of a sudden, your mobility completely, it shoots off the charts, like, over 9,000, you just jump, you can jump everywhere, and it's hilarious. And I was sneaking once, and with a jump spell and a high strength, I could jump over entire cones of vision like a ninja. It's hilarious and awesome. But also shoving. Shoving used to do more damage than it does now, but it's still a really efficient use of a bonus action. It moves enemies, which can be really powerful. It does damage if you push them off of high places. Fantastic. With fast hands, you can shove 2 people, or you can get 2 attempts to shove a particularly difficult target to shove. And then finally, if you go strength and you take a different feat, 2-weapon master feat, I think it's called, then you can use strength-based items in your offhand, which is fine because you can never get sneak attacks with offhand anyways. You only need a finesse weapon in your main hand, and then you can offhand this weapon called Shattered Flail, which does a ton of on-hit effects, and you're doubling up those on-hit effects because you have 2 hits with your offhand in a round, and it's really fantastic. I just think strength thieves are the best way to go. Oh, and then finally, I can't believe I almost forgot. Githyankis also get an invisible mage hand as a racial cantrip. The mage hand legerdemain that Arcane Tricksters get, you can also basically just get if you go as a Gith Thief. So it's the same deal, you can use that to proc your attacks of opportunity. The only problem is it does compete for concentration with Hex if you decide to go Hex. Okay, wow, I totally forgot about second story work, and it's easy to forget about second story work because it's just forgettable. What this does is it gives you resistance to fall damage. It means it halves damage that you would take from falling. That's pretty nice, but you're not going to take a lot of fall damage. I mean, when you do take it, it's a lot, so having it is great. It's not a really common damage type over your run, so this feature isn't going to mitigate a lot of damage. Like I said, it's just kind of forgettable. Anyways, so again, Thief is S tier. It's the way that really makes the Rogue competitive with other martial strikers, and it's really the way to go with your Rogue if you want to focus on striking. However, if you want to add some control spells to your rogue, that's what the Arcane Trickster is for. So Thief S tier, Arcane Trickster B tier, both of them are super fun. Full recommendation for funness. You should definitely play both of them. Maybe play a Thief as your main character, and then take Astarion as the Arcane Trickster. And that's it. That's the rogue, guys. Next week, we'll be talking about the Sorcerer, and I'm really excited because we've just been hinting about the arcane spell list. But we really get to dive into it next week with the Sorcerer, and then we got the Wizard and the Warlock to finish off. Again, arcane casters, so lots of talk about spells, and I love talking about spells, so I will see you guys then. Have a great week.